Alright, g'day everyone and welcome back to X4, where I think we have our first solid bit of evidence that our broader economic strategy is working. What you're just watching is the destruction of a split mining vessel in Heretic's End. I'll teleport out to a ship while we wait. So what has happened is we have been trying to carefully calibrate our economic strategy, as you remember, to give the split enough resources to hold their own increasingly against the Xenon, which appears to be slowly working. Our miners are still being harassed, that's okay, I can send reinforcements out there. But they are trying to build new defense platforms. The Talati are also coming into families in, and I've started to finally see some split capital ships here and there to maybe increase their ability to hold their own territory. What I really want them to be able to do is pump some Raptors. We'll talk about those later out of their Warforge. But I haven't seen many of those yet. However, we didn't want them to cause too much trouble for the Boron, because the Boron are our buddies, so we've been trying to make sure that for every bit of resource we feed the split, the Boron get far more, especially out of that factory we built in their territory. And here you can see the evidence. Split miners and freighters trying to come out to Heretic's End in order to access resources or trade. And the Boron are just sending out expeditionary teams of fighters and gunships to knock those split transports, miners, and other warships out of the sky. So we are getting the results we wanted. The other thing I observed is the Boron have actually gone as far as, where is it? Here it is. This split wharf out here took some damage because a Boron raiding party came and did some damage to it. They've pulled back now. But very, very impressive work for the Boron. It now looks like the split have had to call in a Paranid construction ship to reconstruct their wharf. Anyway, welcome back to another episode. I've been doing a couple of things off screen, but I've got some great plans for today. We'll talk about the economic side a little bit later on, but in the here and now, welcome. Following a very close vote. Oops, I'm not on the correct ship. I'm on the Okinawa. Let's teleport over to the ship. Here we are.
Entering system. Mists of Artemis.
On the bridge of our Asgard class battleship. And this thing, following a very, very close vote, has indeed been named the A-TCS, so active Terran corporate ship, Max Pachado, named after the hero of humanity first in our first game of Terra Invicta. I'll be following different naming conventions for different classes of ships, so carriers, auxiliaries, etc. And within the battleship class, there'll be different naming conventions for the two main different loadouts we can use for the Asgard. I don't intend to mass produce these things. They're too much of a commitment and they're very, very powerful. But I'll show you a little bit later on. There are going to be at least two designs we use. I have modded this thing to high heaven. Here we are. The chassis mod has reduced the ship's mass and drag. I've put a mod on the main cannon, which increases damage, cooling, reload, and weapon rotation. And I believe weapon reload here relates to, don't quote me on this, but I believe it relates to how quickly the damage ticks from the beam. So the beam itself is doing more damage per tick, and the ticks are happening almost twice as quickly. So this Asgard, when it fires its main gun, is going to hurt. I've also added slasher upgrades to the turrets to increase the damage output. I've docked a gunship in order to increase the number of flak turrets on board. I've added a 66% shield capacity boost to the main battery of XL shield generators, which means I believe this thing is now running a casual shield strength of 1,000, meaning this thing's got a million shield strength. A million. So that's 5 times or more, I believe, than what the Earl King has. I'll check the Earl King in a moment, but this thing is just an absolute beast. It's about 5 times slower than the Earl King, but it's also about 5 times as tanky, and the firepower, well, the firepower is something to behold. We're here in Mist of Artemis to deal with that target right there, the Kha'ak Ravager. You will notice we lost contact with the Ravager briefly, but we've also lost contact with all the stations that used to be here. The Ravager has cleaned up those stations with its Mega Death Beam, and in testing I flew by in the Earl King, and this thing just grazed me with its Death Beam, and the Earl King's shields just evaporated, and I was in hull. Luckily I was faster than the damn thing, I was able to get away, and the Earl King is now off and getting repaired, and I believe it's been repaired and redeployed. But yeah, it's time for this Ravager to die so we can clear out the Kha'ak. The primary weapon we're going to be working with, by the way, is this, the ATF XL main battery. And the key thing is this, the range of 14 kilometers. Huge burst damage that we have enhanced. Like, ours is at least twice as good as the standard beam, I believe, at this point, with all the modifications we put on it. Alright, travel drive is engaging. And my plan here is relatively simple. We don't have the same travel speed that the King did, that's okay. To be honest, 6,000 meters per second is probably more manageable than the 20,000+ anyway. The goal here is just to assassinate the thing. Don't give it time to turn around. We'll drop out well within our maximum range. And then hopefully, on paper, this gun should be able to deal with the target in one burst. That's what the Terrans built the Asgard to be able to do. Destroy capital ships in a single burst. So gunnery officer, please commence primary ignition. Drop out. Hello. Oh, that's hilarious. Oh. That thing was terrifying me in my King. Alright, well, I think that qualifies as a successful test of the main armament.
Where
Dal,
have you wandered off to?
I'm busy conquering a sector of space, Dal, if you don't mind. Alright, Ravager eliminated. Amazing. But I think we now have a station to go deal with. Alright, we're going in. This time I believe I've got the firepower to actually more confidently deal with the defense structures and whatnot. We hopefully thinned the fighter herd a little bit. I'm going to try and draw some of them in. All defensive turrets should be armed at this point.
Installation.
As you can see, the Hive installation is nothing to sneeze at, but I believe it should primarily have short-ranged anti-fighter armaments. Basically, whereas the Xenon armaments can really struggle with fighter swarms, the Kha'ak are the opposite. They struggle with capital ships, and they do relatively well against fighters. In fact, they do very well against fighters. What are you shooting at? You're still shooting at Xenon. Fantastic. Well, howdy. How you all going? Travel drive, please move me to that defense platform. And let's see if the main cannon performs just as well against targets like this. Drop out. We should have a range advantage here.
Kha'ak defense platform.
If I can actually hit the thing, there we are. I believe we're hitting it. Oh yeah, we are.
Forager.
I stopped at 1% hull. Alright, defensive guns are engaging.
You'll have to do more damage than that.
There go the beams. Let's just have a brief external view of the Max Picado rather. As the Kha'ak swarm comes in. You can see the Kha'ak are not stingy with their short-range armaments. But hopefully between the beam turrets and the flak, we should be able to fend them off.
Kha'ak installation.
The installation itself is right there. Let's check if there are any more defense platforms. There are.
Kha'ak installation.
But let's destroy this module first, I think. Let's see how quickly the hull goes down on this massive... I think this is about the biggest sort of installation you can possibly engage. Let's see what the main cannon does in a single charge. Alright, we burned about 6% hull in a single charge of the main laser. And I'm liking the cooling rate on that main gun. That said, look at the shield bar. The interesting thing about capitals... interesting thing to know about capitals in X4, and feel free anyone to correct me if I'm wrong on this, but unlike other ship classes, capital vessels are always recharging their shields. There's no delay before the shield starts to recharge, which means that our regeneration rate on our shields, as powerful as they are, may actually be so high that they can never actually break through our shields. I've encountered this problem trying to kill Xenon using small ships before, if you're not able to take out the generators. But in this case, I think it's actually working as our favour. I don't think these guys can actually break through our shield regen. So I can basically sit here, gunning down the swarm, There we go, first section of the station's going up. Beautiful. Okay, another section is detonating in spectacular fashion. That is 3 clumps that have now been neutralized. Moving on to the 4th. Every time we turn our flak occasionally clips us and he feels the need to apologise. Mate, you are not getting through my shielding. This is not an Executor class Star Destroyer. We do not have a critically vulnerable bridge here. Life is good. And I don't see any A-Wings present. So, by all means, just keep firing, chalk up those kills. I'm just vacuuming up as many mod components as drop from all of these Kha'ak fighters that are being destroyed. Waiting for the main cannon to recharge and remove yet another section of this station. This is what it looks like on the map view. And actually, while the gun is recharging for a moment, I'm actually just going to see if we can get a view from the deck. That is how confident I am in the shielding of this ship. Let's go to the dock area. The area of the ship where you have atmosphere. And there you have the flak guns on top. Kha'ak engaging. It looks vulnerable. I do not believe I can actually be hit on deck. But yeah, I wouldn't advise this normally. These guys are very chill going about their business. But you can see the flak cannons. Remind me a little bit of Hydra batteries actually. 40k. Filling the void with fire. Well, let's see if we can get a view. Will we be able to see the primary beam cannons? Yeah, there they are. They'll be trying to get a fix and then engage. The key with the beams is they don't rotate particularly quickly, but once they're on a target, that target is basically going to die. Because once they're in, as you can see, they're just going to hold on that target until it explodes. It's not going to have, unless it can hide behind the ship itself. Yeah, there it goes. Awesome. And our gunship is having a grand old time. Alright, sightseeing over. Main gun should be recharged. Back to the bridge. And this very much does feel like bringing the right tool for the job. Like throwing a very expensive fighter swarm at this probably would have accomplished very little to nothing. With extreme losses, but bringing exactly the kind of system the Kha'ak are not generally designed to fight, and then ambushing the only anti-capital weapon they had, which was the Ravager. It's just turning this into the kind of one-sided engagement that I really hope exemplifies many of Terminus's operations going forward. Because recruiting is far, far better and easier when you have a reputation for not suffering serious losses on a regular basis. We are not going to have to issue massive enlistment bonuses in order to get people to sign up, I imagine. That section of the station looks undestroyed. I would like that to be otherwise. No, it's not going to go. Alright, guess I have to wait for the main gun to cool. We are at 43% hull integrity for the primary station, and the fighter swarm does seem to be starting to thin. Alright, Kha'ak facility down to 8%. 6, 5, 4, 3, 3%. Charging the gun again. We're almost done. Once we destroy the last modules and wipe out the defense platforms, I believe the spawn rate for these Kha'ak fighters will decrease, and the threat posed to this sector will be much, much, much reduced. I'm also really enjoying the amount of loot that we're getting from this. Huge amount of modding components, not high level stuff, basic stuff, but basic stuff is very useful. Basic engine mods, basic turret mods, all very much appreciated, especially basic turret mods. We have a lot of turrets on our capital ships, and the basic mods are perfectly serviceable. Things like Slasher, which only require basic components. So if the Kha'ak want to keep dropping a bunch of loot, attacking a ship that really they don't pose any significant threat to, I'm really all for it. Cannon ready. It's primary ignition. There we go. Alright, it's saying 0% hull. But I think there's a section here which might just need to be tickled. The plasmas might kill it before we get to it.
Hive guard.
Okay, I think that's the station gone. I don't think the station itself drops anything in the way of loot. I just think what we've done is disabled the threat that they pose to this sector. But you can bet I will be having the PR people tell this story all over the network. Private security organization, for the defense of all, flies into a Kha'ak sector in a privately built battleship and cleans things up. I think it makes for a good story. Okay, with the Asgard back at Forge Complex Artemis, let's talk about some of the wider objectives for this episode. Now that the Kha'ak are at least trimmed, there are still a significant number of fighters out there that are fighting with pirates at the moment, so I'm happy to leave them to it. But I'll leave the battleship in sector at least for a while, in case they decide to challenge our expanding complex, and then I might swap things out. Let's talk economics and military build-up objectives for the episode. In terms of economic build-up, I want to combine a little bit of role-playing and politics with economic goals this episode, so we're calling it Jobs and Growth, because what I want to do is get workforces established at all of our stations. We've talked a little bit about workforces before. The main thing with workforces, essentially, is that they increase the efficiency of your stations in exchange for you having to maintain and slowly grow your population and your workforce. You do this by establishing living quarters, and then all employees in X4 expect a couple of things. Living quarters, which in the case of the Terrans are these incredibly luxurious ring quarters with all sorts of rec facilities that house a fraction of the individuals that other species living quarters do. Terrans are just pretty needy in that respect. They also demand free food and free medical care, which you have to provide through the use of rations and medical supplies, which I am establishing here. The Terrans are also pretty demanding in that case. They require more of their workforce and effort to be spent supplying themselves, essentially, than other species. But in exchange for having a sufficient workforce, you increase the efficiency of the modules producing on your station. And that's not throughput, it's efficiency. If one input resource would produce one output product, now one input resource will instead produce 1.1 or 1.2 output product. The Terrans get a little bit less out of this than other species do, but I like to imagine there is a political benefit from offering lots and lots of well-paying luxurious jobs in space that will increase the influence of the organization and the value it has to society more broadly. So my goal, maybe not in this episode, but certainly overall, and then this will probably expand, is to get our employee count up to 100,000 eventually. The biggest station we have at the moment, in terms of employee count and target employee count, is of course Forge Complex Mars, which is in the middle of a large expansion, building a second accommodation tower, if you will. If this is accommodation tower 1 over here, this will be accommodation tower number 2. And the current workforce here is 15,000 with a current capacity of nearly 19,000, but the optimal number of workers here is 35,000 for Forge Complex Mars, so we have a long way to go in terms of adequately provisioning. I've built this expanded section off to the side here, which is producing medical supplies and MREs, so as more and more people steadily join the station workforce, we should be in a better and better position. The growth rate of your workforce is tied to a couple of things. The population of the sector. So if you're in a completely deserted sector, you have a slower growth rate. We have a little bit of a bonus here for being in Mars because there are at least a couple of 100 million people living there. It's not completely deserted, but it's also not Earth, where you get a massive bonus for there being 17 billion people right there. You then also get a welfare bonus, which comes from having things like casinos, which we have. And then the number of habitats that you have in total creates a bonus. So we have a lot of empty space and we're building more empty space, so we get a massive growth bonus there. A little bit of a negative for the people who are already working for us. So the workforce here is expanding slowly. It will take a while. It's really a protracted event thing, but we are on our way. So Forge Complex Mars is adding a workforce. The Getsufune shipyard is also adding a workforce to augment the scrap production facility here. And we've slapped a large ship fabrication bay, and we'll be going and buying the blueprint for that in just a moment, which will be a very exciting thing. But stick with me for just a moment. Getsufune shipyard is adding a workforce. I'm building another Getsufune station, which initially is just defense platforms facing the gate to the Xenon sector. The reason I'm doing that is because I'm going to need a second factory in this sector for reasons that will be revealed later on. And also because if I can build defenses near this station, if for whatever reason the Terran fleet needs to deploy elsewhere in the near future for story reasons, I don't want Getsufune to be undefended. So we've got a whole bunch of laser towers laid down temporarily to protect our defense station while it is under construction. All good. We've also got our salvaging ships flying around the place, salvaging wrecks. So I'm very happy with the way the scrap economy section is growing. Over in Quetanort territory, again, adding a whole bunch of additional workforce. This station has a workforce only of 2,500 at the moment. It needs 25,600 to be maximally efficient. So we're adding quarters for another 4,000, 5,000 people now, and we will continue expanding, basically layering the quarters down the flanks of the station to increase the efficiency of everything this area is pumping out. But we have started producing rations there. The growth will continue. Over in Heretic's End, the legitimate business station, hold your horses on that one, that's coming later in the episode. But for now, Heretic's End high-tech factory itself, also going to add a workforce. This is going to be the first 3,000 workers. We're going to have demand for a lot more than that. I think we already need, what? The station already wants 8,300, but we need to add at least some, because this can't be a shipyard effectively without a workforce, because who else is going to crew the damn ships? Amazing. The place that is not going to have a Terran crew. For the most part, we are only going to be building Terran facilities and hiring Terran workers. Every species has its own habitation requirements. The exception is going to be over here. In our Boron station, our hybrid Boron station, our friendship station, which was originally just a water refinery, but which is rapidly expanding to be everything to everyone. So at the moment it is hull parts as well. We're building up a supply chain for boron food, BOFU. So plankton, bogas, bofu, and the boron version of the medical supply production chain. The reason we're doing that rather than a Terran workforce out here is if we produce Terran MREs in excess out here in boron space, who are we going to sell the excess to? Whereas if we produce a crap ton of bofu, we know how the boron feel about that. Like Bozo got really excited with his 50 cubic meters before, so we might be able to make a profit selling bofu and medical supplies into the boron market, plus having some boron employees over here, really good for public opinion and appearances. All of these construction projects mean that my money is actually going down over time. It's barely increasing. Oh, sorry, one more facility. Down here. The Cigaris microlattice facility looks like it has just expanded its workforce. So that has now been built. How are we doing in terms of workforce now, in terms of allowance at target? Capacity is 8,000, optimal number 6,000, fantastic. So what that means is this station is actually ready for some additional miners and probably some additional micro-lattice facilities in order to dial up production a little bit further, now that it's running pretty nicely and efficiently. Let's just check the logical overview. It does look like it is short on gas. So what we'll do is we'll expand the number of cargo drones just in case that's a problem. And then I will build some more mining ships, send them down here in order to support the micro-lattice production process. But as I said, yes, our money is mostly going down because the overwhelming majority of what we produce are building materials for ships or stations. And at the moment, I'm just using them all. I'm using them all to produce new stuff rather than selling them for a profit. Forge Complex Artemis is producing goods which are used to expand Forge Complex Artemis. The bureaucracy is expanding to meet the requirements of the expanding bureaucracy. That's going to persist for a little while, but it is what it is. So I'm going to finish expanding that out, but we are going to start adding new items to our fleet at this very exciting time. So what I wanted to quickly do was, if we go to Vigor Syndicate territory, I've been tolerating the Vigor Syndicate, absolute criminal dropkicks that they are, just trading with them and whatnot, so that we can get access to their blueprints. So I really hope this works. Let's go to the representative's office. I have 145 mil, that should be enough, I hope. If not, I'm going to be very annoyed, although I'm sure I can scrape together the funds.
Hello.
Oi, mate. Yes. I'll get... Yeah, rank. Thank you.
Good luck out there.
Thank you for my license. I would like to buy a blueprint. Ship. Large. Barbarossa. 77 mil. I don't want your building ship design. 77 mil. I could also buy your fighters. You know what? I'm going to buy the She. Yeah, I'm going to buy the Vigor Syndicate Heavy Fighter. And then we have to jump over to Argon territory. Argon Prime. Thank you, Bozo, for the teleportation.
Entering system, Argon Prime.
And from the Argon, we need to buy a couple of things. specifically, we're going to need to buy a large plasma turret blueprint. G'day. Equipment, turrets. Argon large plasma turret, 1 million. Can do that. Argon medium flak turret, 646,000.
Good luck out there.
I guess I also need to buy... I think I'll refit everything at my stations, but these ships still need to be able to leave the dock. So we'll buy the Argon L all-round engine.
Good luck out there.
Great, fantastic. Now, if I've gotten this right, this is our Getsufune shipyard. Barbarossa. So the Barbarossa is a great candidate, I think, to be our new... We've got a whole bunch of different freighters, L freighters in use. The Barbarossa might be a great one to standardize. It's fast. It's got a little bit... Its cargo capacity is okay. It's got 21,000 container storage. There are L traders with twice that. But it's got a travel speed of 6,000, a standard speed of 195, and that's with the Argon all-round engines. We haven't swapped it to Terrans yet. If I've got this right... We can put all-round thrusters on it. Standard software package. Software doesn't really cost much. We'll give it a captain. I'll launch them without shield generators. Because the trick here is to only use Argon parts. Then we add flak turrets. Because the idea is to have a fast trading fleet which I don't have to babysit, because there's nothing that can ambush them that is going to cause me to be worried. Oh, they have 4 L turrets total across 3 groups. Okay, so this thing is going to have 4 plasma turrets, a whole bunch of flaks, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 flak turrets. So as many turrets, as many flak turrets as an Asgard without a gunship docked, and a reasonable amount of plasma for an average turret output of 962. Not bad, not bad. Closed loop. And then the refit version, which is the one that's going to fly it over to the Terran station and then get stuff put on it, we'll call that the final version. So, this thing should only cost Claytronics, energy cells, and hull parts. It looks like it does. So we can add this to the shopping list. Oh, it says 49 minutes. That's because this station doesn't have any building drones. Let's add 30 build drones. Wonderful. Take the number of cargo drones up to 42. There we are. There should be enough energy cells available. And that's cut the construction time down to 13 minutes. Okay, for the moment, we might want to add another shipyard. What will then happen is once the Barbarossa is finished, we'll send the Barbarossas as they're done over to Forge Complex Mars, and there they'll get Terran engines, shield generators, and a crew, and a Terran crew, and they'll be good to go. And that'll be our new large trade fleet. So every station is going to have some attending freighters, and then we're going to have traders that can travel the rest of the network and fill missions as well. Awesome. Fantastic progress. Alright, so we're back on the Earl King, now in Heretic's End, to talk about pirates, public relations, and profitability. As you can see, my money continues to spiral down as we buy more blueprints and divert all of our available resources to construction projects. So what we really need, I think, is to find opportunities to add a little bit of profitability to our business structure in a way that doesn't immediately get diverted to yet more construction. And preferably, a way that, in character at least, allows us to fight against one of the great scourges of the network. No one likes pirates, and so one of the things we can do against the pirates, even though in game terms they're never going to run out of money, I would love to try and crush the scale plate a little bit. And they make a lot of their funds selling goods that are of different legality in different points in the network. The advantage we have now owning Heretic's End is, in our territory, unless we say something is illegal, nothing is really illegal. So manufacturing normally controlled goods in Heretic's End is just fine, and the Hautikvar Freeport over here is a major buyer of them, all those restricted commodities, as is the Hautikvar trade station down here. I could send the Earl King over to destroy these scale plate stations over here, which are producing, for example, Marja dust, at the pharmaceutical goods factory, in inverted commas, which is a controlled good in Paranid territory. But if we just destroy those factories without solving the underlying demand problem, well, there's just going to be a profit motive for the AI to invest resources and build them right back up, if not in Heretic's End, somewhere else. The great thing about the scale plate, of course, is that their relations are locked at -5 because they're disorganized, so even if you attack them, the hostility is really only local and temporary. The scale plate are a loose organization, so shooting at one doesn't make all of them the enemy of you forever. So I want to destroy these stations because they're in my sector and I want to get rid of them, but I also want them to have no motive to return, which is where the good old legitimate business station comes in. What we can do at legitimate business station is set up industries to produce those goods that the scale plate and others are currently making a profit on, undercut them with our own production, and as a result end up in a situation where there is no profit motive for the pirates to rebuild their production stations. So I can just quickly configure, just give me one moment, something like this with a combination of Marja snails, which are then refined into Marja dust. We could establish this at the legitimate business station and then move in and destroy the scale plate factories, knowing that the local market requirement is satisfied. I'm thinking that legitimate business station will move into all range of controlled goods, clearly for the sole purpose of undercutting organized crime. It's not organised crime if we do it after all, because it is completely legal, and we wouldn't be shipping this to anywhere it's controlled. We'd be selling it locally where it is entirely legal, or traders would be coming to us and buying from our station, and who are we to know where it goes next? As far as humans are concerned though, Marja dust is not a controlled substance, so we're perfectly fine in that way. I've set that construction. We need claytronics and hull parts. The claytronics can come from the territory we have with the good old Quetanauts. They're producing a bunch of claytronics down there, whereas the hull parts are being produced locally at the Heretic's End high-end factory, so we can just ship those over, which is why I always keep I like to keep a couple of L traders available for these sort of transfer jobs. Return that Okinawa back to its normal spot. One more shipment of hull parts, mostly depleting the local supply. This is why I'm not making any money at the moment. It's because I keep doing this. Producing my own build goods and then immediately applying them to my own build projects. That solves the hull part problem. I'll get a shipment of claytronics over. I've assigned a builder, and then that first stage of the legitimate business station should be underway. We'll need a trader over here. Grab 1700 claytronics, which is a lot of claytronics. That's okay. For some reason, producing Marja dust is apparently a very claytronics intensive business, but you know what? It is what it is. All transports are locked in. That construction process should be proceeding apace, as is another Terran government contract, this time in Company Regard, which is bordering these Xenon sectors over here. Looks like we lost an exploration ship over there. I'll be nice. I'll go rescue that spacesuit at some point, probably, maybe. I should. I will go rescue Mr. Watney over here in a moment. But I'm building this Terran foothold station here. They have asked for 5 defense platforms, which I have funded and will construct, but I've also laid the groundwork for just a couple more to make sure this station never runs into trouble. And if the Talati of Company Regard ever suffer too badly at the hands of the Xenon flowing out of Turquoise Sea, well, it's good to know the Terrans will be ready to step in. Although with 2 Talati defense platforms, I think they're probably going to be relatively stable for the moment. So the first Barbarossa has rolled out of the Getsefune shipyard, made entirely of scrap, but we now need to send it over to the Terran shipyard, as all the subsequent ones will do, basically. I've created a new preset, which will be the naming regime, so L for Logistics, Bar for Barbarossa, Tent for Terran East Network Trading Company, which basically tells us the role of the vessel. So it'll come to the Terran shipyard, it'll get Terran shield generators, Mark 2s for the main ship, Mark 1s for the modules, it'll switch over to Terran engines, it'll pick up its laser towers here, and it'll also pick up its assigned service crew here. So we'll save that loadout, overwrite loadout, name after it. So it'll pick up some crew, pick up some marines, pick up all of its consumables, and at that point it'll be a finished ship. It'll lose some travel speed but gain a lot of travel acceleration. It'll gain proper protection, keep its really good firepower, and now be basically a fully functional vessel. So within the bounds of our own yard, we can build the hull out of scrap, even though it's a Vigor Syndicate slash Argon Tech base, retrofit it with some Terran technology, and then it will be ready to go. Okay, so at this point there are 2 Terran Secret Service threads that we can pull on. The first is to continue infiltrating the Sagaris Pioneers and to talk to this Paranid gentleman here who wants to get some assistance with an expedition. And what this is basically leading towards is Project Genesis, their research into terraforming, and as a result potentially our research into terraforming. We're going to want to do that. But for the moment, let's start to pull on this thread. Be briefed by Delilah about the political goings-on in relation to Terra and its various, in this case, human neighbors.
System. Sol.
Let's jump back over to the familiar location of the Secret Service Bureau. I have to imagine I'm one of the favourite employees at the moment, considering I'm now literally the bloke who is powering the Terran military-industrial complex and pumping out privately owned battleships. Hey, boss. Covert operations.
We approach you with this operation because you have proved yourself to be a loyal and capable ally to the Terran people. While it would be tempting to focus solely on the Xenon threat, neglecting other dangers would be foolish.
Well, those 2 things do tend to be linked. Like the Yaki creating
Yes,
a Xenon threat.
We must never forget the Argon betrayal.
Ah, yes. Well, let's see her version of history. I've already talked about this in the rant before. You know, the whole Xenon 2.0 thing, potentially unaliving all the people on Earth. That betrayal.
The Argon Federation destroyed the Taurus, thereby significantly weakening Earth's defenses. This craven terrorist act killed Terran citizens and caused damage to our government, costing trillions. It was both a blow to Terran citizens' morale and a humiliation
This is the other great
on
betrayal.
the grander political stage. Now, more than ever, we need to project strength in the face of a shifting universe.
So what can be done about it?
The majority of our resources are tied up in the ongoing campaign against the Xenon. This is why we've approached you. While you are a Terran citizen, you have no documented ties to the Terran Secret Service. Without a traceable connection to us, you will be able to operate in Argon space without
Also,
much
they think I'm
restraint.
amazing.
We have
They think I'm great.
identified an Antigone Republic civil servant we believe is willing to sell confidential Argon information to the highest bidder. You are to meet said informant, and should his intel prove to be of value, obtain it for us. At this point, I have to inform you that this is a strictly covert operation, and should you be compromised, the Terran High Command will deny any knowledge of or responsibility for your actions. Good luck.
All good. I can handle myself, boss. I've got a good reputation around the place, and if they have an issue with me, I can always call in a battleship. But thank you, autosave, for covering me. Looks like we need to fly to Antigone Republic space. I can do that. I believe I brought the experimental shuttle over for a reason.
Whether my skills are well suited for an undertaking of this particular nature. Besides, I have a hard time identifying any scientific benefit in helping to destabilize these governments. As such, I would like to shift my focus towards the pursuit of more fruitful and constructive projects.
You do that, Bozo. Bozo, I've got you working on high mass teleportation too. That's very productive. Okay, let's fly to Antigone space. Oh, actually, on our way, let's just swing by the station, have a look at the scrap station. Here we are. It's going to look like a bit of a mishmash because it is a mishmash of different technology sets. What you've got is the forward dock here.
Hokkaido. Gas.
A couple of mining ships doing their job. Then protein paste for the food up the front. The shipping bay, which currently is trying to produce Barbarosas, but we need to increase the amount of scrap throughput in order to make that happen more consistently. On our left you have the scrap modules. Overhead you have the solar stuff. This is the where the scrap is deposited, so the ships drop the wreckages of the Xenon there. They get processed into scrap metal, and then the scrap metal gets turned into hull parts and claytronics in those processes. Storage in the center. Medical supplies on the left, rations on the right, and then as you can see the living quarters of the station population for operation jobs and growth being completed over here. I haven't done an employee count. It's not going to be 100,000 yet, but we're certainly making progress towards it. And through we go.
Halt! This is a jump gate border check conducted by Argon police.
I'm
Remain
in
calm
Antigone
and disengage
space.
your weapon systems.
Wait, why would Argon forces be stopping you in particular?
Dal, why are they
This
stopping me
is
in
not
Antigone
good.
space? Also,
Sit on
I'm
your
chill with the
toes.
Argon.
Our scans have picked up your ship's signature repeatedly entering and leaving Sol space.
Okay, they're literally admitting to profiling. That's not a crime, mate. Technically, both of these statements are true. I do trade wares all over the universe, and I am a mercenary. I'll say
You'll
mercenary.
disclose your client now, or we will not permit your entry into
I could just
Antigone
quote my
Republic
corporation.
space.
They aren't buying your story. This is bad.
Oh, it's one of my Barbarosas.
Hold
Okay,
on.
if this becomes a shooting match, I have a
Command, I am picking up
freighter
some
slash
suspicious
destroyer right
readings.
there.
This is a scale plate raid. Drop your cargo and surrender your ships.
Okay. A pirate raid right as I'm coming through. That is suspiciously convenient, but I will take it.
Pirate spotted. Bad news, pirate.
Pirates! This is our opportunity.
Okay.
Slip away while the Argon patrol is distracted.
That is a scale plate destroyer.
Cerberus.
These
Vanguard.
smaller vessels are probably in trouble, to be honest.
Nova. Behemoth. Vanguard.
I could jump in, but I think in this one instance, discretion is the better part of valor if I haven't been identified. So,
Baldric.
after all, I'm not sure what the Argon military is doing in Antigone space. So let's go further into Antigone space. I'm sure that Argon patrol.
Ah, I see that you've made your way into Antigone space despite the complications.
Yes.
The informant you are about to contact goes by the name of Salmon Red. He's a public servant in the Antigone Republic Defense Department. You are to bribe him for the information. But I recommend that you're subtle
I have a
about
record
it.
of being
In
so
order
subtle.
to be able to transmit the data to us, you will have to set up a satellite in close proximity to the station to properly encrypt that traffic. It has to be an advanced satellite.
Pretty sure I
I'm
have.
sending Dal the pertinent information now.
Yep, I have advanced satellites on board. I'm all good.
Whew, close call. We're lucky the pirates attacked when they did, but I wonder why they would operate this far into well-guarded Antigone territory. I suppose it matches the reports about the increase in their activity putting pressure on the Federation.
Dal, are you really sure that my boss didn't have that as a backup plan in case I got intercepted on the way in? I mean, what? Just an idea. Let's go lay this satellite. Alright, I'm in the zone. Let's deploy this advanced satellite.
The satellite connected to the Secret Service. Now, let's see this Salmon Red.
Bribe public official. What a
Argon
mission.
Defense platform.
Okay. I've kind of missed doing the Secret Service ops while we've been busy building off a commercial empire.
Mass transporter.
Well, let's see if we can knock out this criminal on our way in. Because we may as well, without hitting the station preferably. There we are. And in we go. I could be flying the Adachi, but just in case we have to land
Successfully
somewhere that
docked.
only has an S-Duck, I find
It's
the
an
experimental
honor to have-
shuttle is nice, agile, and
It's an
well
honor
armed
to
enough
have
for
you
these sort of
aboard.
missions.
Hello
Nice
there.
glasses in space. Too cool for school. Let's jump Salmon Red's office. Very good. G'day, mate.
Who are you?
Mutual associates set up a meeting.
Ah, forgive me. My schedule is quite busy. It is easy to lose track in all this administrative madness. So, what can I do for you?
Before you try to bribe him, perhaps you should sound him out on some
Yeah,
pertinent
I wasn't going to
topics.
just hand over a bag of money and say, give me information. Mate, what do you think of the Argon Federation?
We have had our differences with the Argon government in the past. Initially, they wanted us back in the fold.
Apparently they're
Antigone
harassing people at your
Memorial,
gates
our
now.
home system was significant to them because of its location and its importance to their data infrastructure.
Which I presume
After
is why you
lengthy
have their
talks,
data.
we agreed terms, largely because the jump gate shutdown had changed the gate connections, making Antigone Memorial's current position less valuable to the Argon. Both parties eventually realized that there was no way of putting the genie back into the bottle, and there was nothing to gain from fighting amongst ourselves. Not when there's actual enemies at our gates. Now we look out for each other. Politics isn't a zero-sum game after all.
Straight out of the party line. I'll ask you about these others, the Antigone Republic and the Terran Protectorate.
The Antigone Republic is an inspiring example of human
Of course it
self-determination.
is.
Looking at everything we have achieved, I can't help but be proud of its people. We have risen above petty squabbles and have put the interests of the public first. To see an entity of such considerable power, both economically and politically, arise from what was undoubtedly a most stressful and divisive time in history, fills me with bright optimism.
But you going to do anything about the whole Xenon thing? Anyway, tell us, what do you think about the Terrans?
Now, Terran arrogance will come back to haunt us all. It is no secret that historically, relations between the Argon Federation and the Terran authorities have been tense. And more recently, the Terran Protectorate has shown a blatant disregard for Antigone's sovereignty as well. It would pain me to see my people caught in the crossfire between the two factions, should things escalate.
None of that convinces me that he is a person ready to take money from me, but the game has decided I have one option, that's to say this.
Whoa! Hold up a minute there, partner. The satellite has intercepted some encrypted communications between this
I
office
just
and
said
the
that,
Argon
Dahl.
Counter-Espionage Department. It took me some time to make sense of what I have here, but this is definitely some sort of sting. This guy isn't looking to sell intelligence. He wants to catch Terran interference. Oh, we messed up. Abort this
Yeah,
operation.
I'm just telling him I have
Yes.
advice.
What is it you were saying? Are you all right? Leaving already?
My mind is unable to cease considering that endeavor I would like to propose. Please come and talk to me about it.
Bozo, I will be there to talk to you about it soon, but first I need to get out of the most obvious sting in the history of stings.
Thank you.
Oh, that was too close for comfort. I think it's best if we don't stick around.
We won't.
Thanks for your help.
And no one's catching me at 8,000 meters per second. Score up another massive success for the Terran Secret Service. I'm getting real, I'm gonna have to do it myself vibes again.
Thank you for verifying that this lead was a dead end. It would have been too risky to send one of our own agents, but we had to be sure nonetheless. We will make sure we properly compensate you for exposing yourself to these risks once you have completed your task.
Well, thank you, boss.
The Protectorate suspected something was off about this. They were using us as a proxy, knowing that nothing tangible could be traced back to them.
Now, since we did not obtain any useful intelligence, we will have to approach this from a different angle. Although the Antigone Memorial System now belongs to the Antigone Republic, its major planet, Sandwell, is still under Argon jurisdiction. Sandwell, as hostile an environment as it is host to the biggest data archive in the Argon Federation. Accessing it could unearth invaluable strategic information. It is understandable, therefore, that the security of this underground complex is very tight. Luckily, we won't have to access the planetary archive itself. According to our reports, the Antigone Republic operates a relay station with direct access to the Sandwell archives. It was set up at an undisclosed location to maintain contact between the planetary archives and distant Argon fleets. You will help us find that relay station. Doing so will require a security decryption system with which to hack into Argon systems,
so this is
as
like
well as an EMP bomb and a spacesuit bomb launcher. Once you've managed
like a
to get your
spaceborne
hands
special
on all of the
operation.
required
We're gonna
items,
tap some
we will
wires.
be able to manipulate the Argon workforce database.
And once you can manipulate the workforce database, you can give me an identity the same way you did with the Cigaris Pioneers.
Sometimes you can find them in wreckage of destroyed ships, or you can craft one yourself, if you've got the right resources. To craft one,
Dal, I have about
5
35
AGI
in my
heuristic
safe.
cores, a decryption module, and an interface unit.
I
Be
really
careful, though.
don't need
Most
Dal.
factions don't really tolerate people using this kind of hacking equipment, so don't let yourself get caught with one of them. From what we've seen so far, we shouldn't expect our Terran friends to have our backs out
Nor
here.
would I expect them to, Dal. I'm operating in foreign territory here. Alright, well, I guess I have to fly back and grab some decryption software, and we may as well talk to Bozo while we're there. Alright, g'day Dal. Let's grab a... what do we need? A security decryption system. I should have a bunch of these things. Security decryption system. I have 4 in storage, and materials to make a bunch more, so let's grab one.
The security decryption system makes it possible for us to access the station's internal workforce database in order to rewrite job offers. We may not know which station acts as the relay, but someone on the Argon's payroll definitely does. The Argon Federation would not delegate maintenance to any external services.
I wouldn't be so sure about that.
We convincingly fabricated a distress call.
Government outsourcing a service it shouldn't? Perish the thought.
I'm sending the relevant information now. Let Dahl have a look.
Do I have to?
You know, the Argon Federation's careful about disclosing that relay station's location for a reason.
Yes.
The Sandwell archives hold critical information on Argon tech, message logs, payroll information, business transactions, and the like. The fact that those servers are stationed in Republic space has been responsible for heated political standoffs on more than one occasion. Access to the archives isn't being held to ransom, exactly, but the Antigone Republic guaranteeing its security and data integrity is a powerful incentive for peaceful coexistence. Should the Terrans manage to breach Antigone security, not only could the obtained intel be used to weaken the Argon, but the political fallout resulting from a leak could potentially be even more damaging.
Interesting. We'll pick up that thread in a moment, but first, Bozo, you had something you wanted to talk to me about. Actually, you know what? I think, Bozo, you're going to send us on a little bit of a journey, aren't you?
Are you here for my proposal? Hello there.
Yes, tell me about your proposal.
Very well. Now that we have the ability to relocate this station, I have been thinking about the opportunities that would open up from our station being in another location. And what I have come up with is... wait for it... terraforming.
I can say terraforming, or terra what? Let's say terraforming with a question mark.
Originally a Terran term, obviously, I suppose. It is the process of transforming a world's environment to more closely match the narrow parameters that complex life requires. The effort and materials required truly boggle even my mind. But they are necessary if we intend to bring a new and welcoming equilibrium to a currently inhospitable world. This station's technology, combined with a mind as sophisticated as mine, contains truly remarkable depths of potential which we have not yet plumbed. Still, we will need to extend this station in order to produce the required technology. Your mission overview will have the details.
I can ask, what's the return on investment, or will this make me money? What's the return on investment?
Before you ask, do not expect this to turn a profit. Even if you do end up developing a strong economy, any possible returns will be utterly dwarfed by our expenditures. But is profit really more important than leaving a lasting and positive mark on the galaxy?
I can say, of course, no, it's not, because we can use this for political purposes.
Of course not. I have taken the liberty of researching specific opportunities
also strengthening,
and adding them to your mission overview. Peruse them at your leisure.
Strengthening the societies that are resistant to Xenon and other threats. Like, this is not power for power's sake. Power for power's sake is obnoxious. We want to get some good results. So I believe we've got the research in play, high mass teleportation, as I slowly build up the necessary resources. Getting the field coils is the hardest part. I'm not currently producing those. I'm slowly shipping over the advanced electronics and superfluid coolant, and the Navidium is almost mine. So we'll probably finish the research for high mass teleportation 2 next episode, and then we can talk about where we send it, but that's probably a good place as any to end it. What have we accomplished this episode? Well, we cleared out the Kha'ak in the south, including testing the Asgard class battleship against a worthy opponent, although it does look like maybe sending the Earl King down there would be a good idea in the future, just to deal with the remaining threats. Earl King has been cleaning up over here in Hartiga's Choice 1. So maybe the Earl King does go... Interesting that we got Yaki raiding parties. Anyway, let's route the Earl King south. We can reroute the Asgard somewhere more useful. So we routed the Kha'ak, which I imagine will be greatly received in the Gate network. We continued Operation Jobs and Growth, which is rapidly expanding all of our stations and increasing the number of employees we have. We produced our first ships out of the Getsufune shipyard, which we haven't named formally yet, but we will soon. Those closed-loop Barbarossas that will soon become the backbone of our trade empire, I hope, provided that scrap can keep up with the demand. We started on a defense station in Getsufune as well, Sentinel Station, which will serve as a backup if for any reason the Terran fleets have to deploy, which they might as a result of the Secret Service missions we're now doing. And of course, we pulled on the thread of the Secret Service missions while pushing forward research that allows us to relocate our station and potentially do some terraforming in the future. I hope you enjoyed the episode. We're making a fair amount of progress all at once. Here's my Boron station, which is going to be building its first oases soon, which are living quarters for Boron workforce. Very, very exciting once that all expands out. I very much hope you're enjoying, and I'll see you all again soon.